The flickering beam of my flashlight barely cut through the suffocating darkness that filled the abandoned asylum. It was so quiet that every sound of the floors creaking under my feet sounded like a gunshot. It made my heart beat faster against my chest. I had no business being here, there weren't any. However, I got here tonight because I was curious, and curiosity is a bad master. It was said that Greymore was cursed. Some people said that the falling walls held something much worse. I laughed at the stories and thought they were just made-up campfire stories to scare kids. But now that I was by myself in the middle of this abandoned place, I wasn't so sure. "Get a grip, Jack," I muttered to myself, the sound of my voice barely more than a whisper in the heavy quiet. But the words felt hollow, and the fear eating at my insides refused to be quelled. I moved deeper into the room, my footsteps bouncing off the cold stone walls. The hospital seemed to pulse with a malicious energy, as if it were living, feeding off my rising fear. I could feel the weight of countless eyes on me, though I knew I was alone. Or at least I should have been. The temperature dropped suddenly, and the cold bit into my skin like 1,000 icy pins. My breath came out in noticeable puffs, and I shivered despite myself. There was a heavy feeling in the air, a noticeable anxiety that made every hair on the back of my neck stand on end. It was as if the very fabric of reality was being bent and stretched thin by the presence of something unknown, something old and malicious. Then I heard it, a faint whisper just on the edge of hearing. It was so quiet, so faint, that I almost convinced myself I had imagined it. But the hairs on my arms prickled, and a deep, primal fear rooted itself in the pit of my stomach. I strained to listen, turning my head slightly to catch the sound. The voice was soft, almost gentle, but it was mixed with something dark, something that made my blood run cold. It came from nowhere and everywhere at once, echoing off the walls and filling my head with a giddy sense of confusion. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice shaking despite my efforts to keep it steady. The echo of my own words bounced back at me, mocking my fear. But there was no answer. Just the same stifling silence pushing down on me like a smothering blanket. I swallowed hard, but my throat was dry and tight. I had to keep moving. Standing still would only make me more exposed to whatever was playing these cruel tricks on my mind. I forced my feet to carry me toward the door on the other side of the room, my flashlight flashing eerily as if it too was affected by the malevolence that filled the air. As I reached the door, something cold brushed against the back of my neck, like a hand, skeleton and icy. I spun around, my heart pounding in my chest, but there was nothing there. Just empty air. But the feeling of being watched was stronger now, almost stifling in its intensity. I bolted through the door, slamming it shut behind me. My breathing was ragged and my nerves frayed to the breaking point. I found myself in a long hallway, the walls lined with broken tiles and peeling paint. The faint light from my flashlight cast long, dark shadows that seemed to writhe and twist as if they had a life of their own. The hallway stretched on forever, the darkness at the far end eating the light like a hungry maw. I felt a deep, primal fear pull at me, telling me to turn back and leave this place before it was too late. But something deeper, some sick interest kept me going forward. As I walked, the whispers returned, louder this time, more forceful. They filled my ears, a clamor of voices all speaking at once, their words a jumbled mess that I couldn't understand. I tried to block them out, but they were persistent, cutting into my mind like sharp claws.
"Jack, you shouldn't have come here."
The voice was different this time, deeper, more threatening. It echoed through my head, sending a spike of pain through my temples. As the ground seemed to tilt beneath my feet, I clutched my head, falling forward. The walls around me curved and twisted, the tiles peeling away to show a pulsing darkness that threatened to swallow everything in its path. I stumbled into another room, the door slamming shut behind me with a loud bang. The room was small, barely more than a closet, and the walls seemed to close in on me, the air thick with the smell of death. My flashlight flickered again, the light getting weaker by the second until it finally went out, leaving me in pitch dark. Panic rushed through me and I fumbled with the flashlight, hitting it against my palm in a frantic effort to revive the dying light. But it was useless. The darkness was complete, taking me whole. And with that came the whispers, louder now, almost thunderous.
You can't run, Jack. You're one of us now.
You can't run, Jack. You're one of us now. With a thought, I stumbled backward, my back hitting the wall. I could feel something moving in the darkness, something that brushed against my skin like cold, wet fingers. The voices grew stronger, more forceful, and I could feel them pressing into my mind, pushing their way in. Then I saw them, faint, ghostly forms appearing from the darkness, their eyes hollow and their faces twisted in bizarre looks of pain. They walked slowly toward me, their mouths opening and shutting as they whispered their terrible secrets.
Join us, Jack. You belong here.
I screamed, the sound tearing from my throat like a raw, primal cry of fear. I lunged for the door, my hands scrabbling at the cold metal handle. But the door wouldn't move. It was as if the hospital itself had shut me in, locking me with these angry ghosts. The ghosts drew closer, their cold hands reaching out to me, their words filling my head with 1,000 voices all speaking at once. Now, I could feel their touch, cold and wet, like the touch of death itself. My vision blurred, and my mind split under the weight of their presence.
Jack.
The last voice was different, familiar. It cut through the noise of whispers, centering me in the moment. I blink, and the darkness seems to shift, with ghosts flashing like dying flames.
Wake up. Wake up.
I jolted awake, gasping for breath, my heart beating in my chest. I was lying on the cold concrete floor of the hospital with my flashlight beside me, its light flashing slightly. The room was empty, the shadows still there, but the overwhelming feeling remained, heavy and smothering. I scrambled to my feet, my mind spinning. Had it all been a dream? A dream caused by the asylum's evil energy? I didn't know and I didn't care. I needed to get out of this place, and fast. I bolted for the exit, my footsteps booming through the empty halls as I ran. The whispers followed me, getting fainter with each step until they were little more than a faraway memory. I burst through the front doors, the cold night air hitting me like a splash of water. I didn't stop running until I was far from Graymore, the asylum's dark outline fading into the distance. Only then did I allow myself to fall, my body shaking with tiredness and fear. The hospital was behind me, but the images of that night would haunt me forever. The ghosts of Graymore had let me go, but I knew they were still there, waiting for the next unhappy person to walk into their territory. I never returned to Graymore. I couldn't. The thought alone was enough to send shivers down my spine. But the words still came to me sometimes in the dead of night.
Jack, you shouldn't have come here. Jack.
When the world was quiet and still. They were faint, almost inaudible, but they were there. A warning that I had come too close to something dark, something that had left its mark on me forever. And sometimes, even when I closed my eyes, I could still see them. The annoyed ghosts, their blank eyes watching and waiting.